We acted no better than animals, and nearly drowned ire in our own blood.
But from that conflict, the great Khas opened our minds. He brought us the glory of the Khala. And our every emotion, our every thought became as one.
Protoss History Part 2 Khala, the Path of Ascension. Thanks to the radical changes that took place in the Second Age, the Eon of Strife came to an end. When the crazy age-old enmity overcame the next generation of Protoss warriors, a brilliant insight dawned on one strange mystic. The true name of this mystic, Sevasan, remained known only to the Preservers. For the rest of the Protoss, he became Khas, or He Who Brings Order. Following deciphered xel'naga relic records, Khas was able to locate Khadarian crystals. These crystals, left over from the xel'naga's hasty departure, were the primary tools in their proto-genetic experiments. Khas managed to pass through himself the flow of the primary energy of these crystals, which allowed him to achieve a primordial psychic bond with his race. For the first time after thousands of years of oblivion, the Protoss primary link was rediscovered. Receiving the floods of emotion emanating from each of his tribesmen, Khas learned that the Protoss had not lost their primary connection, but had simply lost the ability to tune into it. Khas, horrified by the warlike explorations that had torn apart his race for many centuries, began to look for ways to save his people. By uniting the young Protoss, Khas was able to teach a new generation of warriors how to access their latent psychic bond. These young ones, unexpectedly given the opportunity to walk away from the terrible strife that surrounded them, were able to see clearly that the conflict of their race is insanity. They believed that the xel'naga had been right to leave them, and that they were indeed a failed creation, as their species nature could not stand up to the heightened ego. They maintained that the fall of the race was not their fault, and the current internal conflict and racial confusion of the Protoss have run their course. Khas developed a fundamental system of psychic progression that he hoped would discipline the new generation and keep them from repeating the tragic mistakes that led to the perversion of the essence of the Protoss. Khala, or Path of Ascension, was the name given by Khas to both the Protoss mental connection itself and to the teaching that called on the Protoss to put aside personal ambitions and make every effort to reunite the once powerful race. Khas' main hope was that the Khala would develop a new consciousness in the Protoss. Gradually, the Protoss abandoned centuries of enmity. The Ara tribe was the first to rally around the ideals of the Khala. The Akali tribe, which had dominated the other tribes for centuries, also came to the conclusion that the teachings of Khas marked a new stage in the development of Protoss society. This process marked a truly turning point in the history of the Eon of Strife and marked the beginning of the Second Age. When the terrible wars subsided and the tribes began to heal their wounds and restore lost ties, the principles of the Khala began to penetrate into the deep foundations of the new Protoss society. The Khala, among other things, called for a transition from a tribal society to a caste system. All members of the tribes were split into three new castes: the Judicators, the Khalai and the Templar. The tribes were divided into castes according to the pronounced features of each of them. This shift worked to remove the last remnants of the old hostilities between the tribes and strengthen the resolve of the Protoss to embrace a new beginning. The Judicator caste consisted of Protoss elders and statesmen, who were given the primary responsibility of governing society according to the dictates of the Khala's law. Representatives of the Ara tribe mostly belonged to this caste, but there were also those from the Shellac tribe, who showed a genuine interest in the mysteries of the xel'naga, and who later often became the preservers and the lore masters of the Protoss civilization. The Judicator Assembly was ruled over by a small group of elders, known as the Conclave. The second caste, the Khala caste, included the largest part of the Protoss community. It represented the driving force of society, industrialists, scientists and workers, who continued to rebuild their homelands after the harsh conflicts of the Eon of Strife. This caste included members of the Phyrenax tribe. The third caste, called the Templar, consisted of warriors. The tribes included in this caste, namely Sagas, Akali, Auriga, Venatir and Velari, were distinguished by courage or dexterity or were inclined towards military tactics and strategy. In the early days of the Khala, they fought to defend the reunited Protoss culture from those who disagreed with its principles or were too afraid to accept it. However, it wasn't long before all the Protoss realized that the only way to peace and prosperity was through the Khala. Once this harmony was achieved, Protoss society developed rapidly and beneficially, and the Templars were able to focus on protecting their people, first from the fearsome creatures that inhabited Aiur, and then from the hostile alien creatures they encountered while colonizing other planets. Under the new leadership of the Conclave and their Judicator administrates, and armed with the zealous might of the Templar, the Protoss soon rebuilt their decimated world of Aiur into a bustling paradise. As they grew and prospered, they rediscovered many forgotten branches of science and mastered interstellar travel. The Protoss built 5 gigantic cities and 38 temples across Aiur, and the population swelled to billions. In just a few centuries, the Protoss conquered hundreds of worlds in their part of the galaxy, spreading the fruits of their great civilization among other less developed races. In the end, the Protoss managed to conquer an 8 of the worlds once ruled by the xel'naga. In accordance with the strict codes of the Khala, the Protoss took upon themselves the burden of the Deul, or Great Stewardship. Following the ancient traditions of the xel'naga, the Deul called for the Protoss to protect and safeguard the lesser races that lived under their shadow. However, unlike their predecessors, the Protoss refused to interfere with the development of the lesser races under their protection. Constantly vigilant against the Terrans, the Protoss kept a close eye on their unsuspecting wards. Like the xel'naga many millennia ago, the Protoss did not betray their presence to the minor races under their care. Many hundreds of species of creatures developed and flourished in various worlds of the Protoss sector, not even knowing about the secret protection from above. At the same time, at the request of the Conclave, cybernetic warriors controlled by advanced artificial intelligence were created by Protoss engineers. The consciousness of these machines was made up of the memories of the fallen greatest warriors from the Templar caste. These creatures were known as the Purifiers. But in the eyes of the ruling elite of the Protoss, they were nothing more than slaves, mere weapons, and clearly did not have the honors with which they treated the living members of the Templar caste. As a result, this treatment led to the uprising of the Purifiers against their creators. Many Protoss died during the war, but still the resistance of the machines was crushed. They were placed in stasis on the space platform Cybers, orbit the moon Endion, and remained as a reminder of the dangers of progress.